Good afternoon and welcome to a webinar from Linköping University. We are going to talk specifically about the Faculty of Arts and Sciences. So this is a webinar for those of you who have been admitted to a program within social sciences or arts, such as ethnic and migration, business studies, gender, international and European relations, and so on. I'm going to kind of start the introduction a bit slowly to allow for participants to kind of drop in. But to let you know that we are going to talk about the guests' experiences for about 20 to 30 minutes, and then we'll open up for questions. And please put your questions in the Q&A section. That's where we'll be looking. So ignore the chat. It's the Q&A function where we'll be answering questions later on. This webinar is being recorded, but only the first half. So our conversation will be published on our website later on. The Q&A section it's for you who are here with us live today. I think I've done that intro slowly enough. So that I hope that enough people have joined us. Let's start with an introduction. My name is Therese Winder. I am a communications officer, and I work centrally with student recruitment. And let's start with, I think Daniel is the one who's in the main screen. So let's start with you, Daniel.
Hello, everyone. My name is Daniel García, and I'm currently working as assistant lecturer here at Linköping University, and also as SMEO coordinator in the program of strategy and management of international organizations.
Thank you. Hela?
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Hela Galvis. I am originally from Colombia, and currently I'm pursuing a master degree exactly in the same program that Daniel just mentioned, business management and international organizations.
And finally, Asia.
Hi everyone, my name is Asia. I come from Italy, and I'm finishing now my master in ethnic and migration studies. I'm writing my master thesis now.
Excellent, thank you. So we've got two second-year students. We also have Hela and Daniel and myself, despite the background I've chosen, based in Linköping, and Asia in Norrköping, where we have a few programs. But I thought we should start with just doing a kind of brief remembering back 2 years, or even further for you, Daniel, if you want to chip in with your alumni perspective. When you first started here, what was it like? Describe your first few weeks of starting classes here. Asia,
yeah, it's been...
Oh, Daniel.
Oh, doesn't matter. Asia, you can go.
Okay, so yeah, I remember quite well when I come here. The first impression that I had was that it was quite warm. So I don't know exactly why I thought that in August Sweden was very cold, but I mean in Norrköping or Linköping is not so cold actually. So I came with a lot of winter clothes, and I was like, okay, it's summer here. I mean, it's not so hot summer, but still warm. And regarding like my first experiences in the university, I remember that it was very beautiful to participate to some welcome activities in my program. And I think that this is something that every program does actually. So probably professors and former students organize, some kind of welcoming, ficas together. And yeah, so I remember that quite well, also because we went in this beautiful room in the top of campus Norrköping, and we had fika together with professors and some students from the second year. Yeah, so that was a great experience.
Thank you. Daniel?
I'm originally from Spain, so for me also I felt the same. I think I had a bit of a conception of when I arrived to Sweden that it was going to be also more cold. It will get cold later in winter, but it was bearable in summer. For me, it's also kind of similar to what Asia was mentioning. I arrived here a bit like alone. I had been in Linköping University before as an Erasmus student, so I could say I fairly know the university quite well, but it's always a bit, you always feel a bit nervous when you join a program first time in a group of like 40 people and you don't know anyone. So I really remember the feeling of like being a bit alone, and how fast that actually went away, because it was basically the first day in class when everyone is in a similar situation, so you get to talk with a lot of people, everyone talk with each other, and you kind of bond with each other kind of fast. And also thanks to, for example, in the program that I did, we had these senior students who are big brothers and sisters, as how they are called, and their main goal is to actually create all these social activities and bonding activities between the first year students. So this adaptation process is actually easier for them. So I remember all these activities, especially in the beginning, and it was a really nice time. Then it got a bit complicated later when it started with like, you go more into the studies and you're reading articles and so on. But the first weeks were like really, really, really nice.
Oh, great. How about you, Ella?
Yes.
You're from the same program, so similar recollection?
Very similar, but also I would like to add that, of course, the first weeks are the ones that you're trying to figure out everything by yourself. So just to, let's say I am currently staying in Norrköping and I had to commute to Linköping at least 3 times a week or 4 times a week. So I really had to learn quite fast how to use campusbussen. Before campusbussen was part of the regional transportation system. Now campusbussen is like an only exclusive line from the university. So yeah, you basically have to kind of get knowledge of where you are, which kind of stores are close to where you live, the basics. So it's a lot of, I would say it's quite intense, at least the first 2 weeks, like, because you're meeting like all these people, you're trying to understand like your program, and you're like wonder where you are and what's available. And soon there's going to be a lot of parties and a lot of gatherings. So you kind of want to do it all. So it's a bit overwhelming, but it's a lot of fun. So I highly recommend that to enjoy it at the most.
Yeah. And whilst you might as well continue. What was it like? What's it like to study here? So you came here and you've all seemed to have had a great kind of bonding experience, finding friends and so on in the first few weeks. But then you settle in and it's classes. What was it like?
Well, the first class, I always going to remember it because it was completely different than what I imagined. It was way more hands-on. It's more studying cases, it's studying literature and novels and understanding management from from a literature perspective. So I think like at least what I've learned in this MIO or in business management program is that you're really never sure about what's going to happen in classes. I mean, of course, when you meet the seniors, then they let you know. But in the beginning, it's like, okay, you could be watching movies and reading novels to learn leadership. And the next term, you're doing like a financial model and you have to become an expert in Excel. And the next term you have to become an expert in, I don't know, right now I'm doing a project in design thinking, and I'm also like learning how to understand engineers. I mean, you have to kind of be prepared for all regarding like your master thesis topic. Your master program's topic.
Mm-hmm. And Asiya, your perspective from your program?
Yeah, I was also quite surprised, I remember, and I have to say that I needed some time to get used to this kind of system that I don't think that is just about my program, but I can hear you, Hela, when you talk about, the way in which you are now used to learn in the class, because I think it's a very Swedish model of teaching, probably. I remember that the first class, our professor, I was used to, in Italy, to attend classes seated, like on a desk in front of the teacher. And the teacher, since the first moment, he asked us to sit around us, like as in a circle. And I was like, oh, that's weird. We're going to do like games or something like that. And actually, this is how we do seminars here. You know, we sit like in a big circle, and this facilitates the communication. And then, yeah, I think that this was like the kind of the biggest difference that I felt. And then, of course, other more specific issues, but we can talk later. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Daniel, from your perspective as a teacher, how do you see, what's the key difference operating within the Swedish system?
Good question. I think it's fairly easy to see, also coming, for example, in my case, from the like Spanish system of education, that it probably is more hierarchical, and you can also see that more in the way companies organize, and you see that also in the university. The approach teacher, student, teacher is closer here. It's fairly easy to have a communication with your teacher also outside of the class, and in that sense, I think, especially for people who come from another nationalities and they are not used to the Swedish system, that might be a bit weird in the beginning in some way, to see what is the boundaries, because for some other nationalities, to go to that point might be disrespectful in some sense, because teachers are seen as like this a bit more higher authority that you need to take them with like extremely respect, and there's like these clear boundaries that you shouldn't move forward. That's not so clear in Sweden. It's actually more the opposite. It's a more close relationship with the teacher in many cases. So I think it's also part of like the learning process when you move here, to understand that is the normal way to do it. Also, one of the really important things in the very beginning, especially when you have like international context class, like you have people coming from all over the world, it's a bit hectic in the way that you need to create a common way of doing things. You need to create like a pattern for everyone to come together in the same way. You need to establish from the very basic things about arriving on time, from what we expect when we meet a deadline, from the Swedish quarter, which is, for example, being in class 15 minutes before. So all these simple things that the ones who are used to already to the Swedish system is fairly easy for us. It's a whole new world when you move in. So all these things is kind of, you need to go from the really small changes to the big ones in the first weeks.
And how did you find that, we got to della, the chance of being in a classroom with lots of nationalities? I mean, I can imagine there are lots of positives. What are those? But also, what are the challenges?
Yeah, I think for me, it was quite a unique experience. I've never been in the same room, like studying a class with so many students from so many different nationalities. And of course, it is fascinating to get to know them. Like, I've never spoken with people from so many different countries, and we'll never get together in the same table to discuss a business case. So for me, that was unique. I mean, I really think like that's kind of half theoretical learning and the other half is actually practical learning, because that's when the challenges over time start to appear. You need to learn to communicate with each other. Everyone has different ways of communicating, everyone has different cultural backgrounds. So it is on the way when you're studying that you start realizing these differences. You don't notice in the beginning. Of course, like you have like a classmate that comes from China, another that comes from Ghana, another that, I don't know, may come from Canada, and another is Swedish. So, basically, we're different. But the only way to fully understand those differences is like while you are in the way working together. So my program, it is specifically tailored to learn and develop your soft skills. You definitely need to improve your communication skills, teamwork skills. Like, teamwork is a key word for this program. So yeah, you really learn to work in a team and understand each other and respecting each other, and moving forward to deliver whatever is needed on time.
Thanks. García?
Yeah, so, well, let's say firstly that I'm very fascinated about this topic, so how to kind of relate inside global classrooms. I'm actually writing my master thesis on this now, so it's like my thing, definitely. And I would say that in my specific case, it's also very interesting because what we are actually studying is race, gender, and class, and how these three forms of oppression, but not only these forms of oppression, kind of intersect in our everyday lives. So happens often that what we are studying in the literature is also something we are experiencing personally. And I would say that one of the biggest challenges of like my program is to be able to put together the differences and make something positive out of them, because sometimes we had some, there are some normal dynamics inside the classrooms, and it's very hard when everyone is coming from a different country, but it's not just about a different nationality, it's also about a different background, not just in a university, but also a different class position, a different historical experience, geographical experience. So I would say that, differences are important, and this is what actually also we try to do in my program, to make differences something beautiful, something that we should talk about all the time. Yeah.
And I assume the kind of the heavy emphasis on group work is where you'd see most of these challenges, but also where you overcome the challenges by really getting to know each other. So yeah, this is really interesting to kind of hear that you do end up with a global classroom with so many different perspectives and so many different approaches to learning. But one other challenge that sometimes students find is the amount of self-study. So the time that you have to, you're not scheduled, you don't have seminars, you don't have lectures. How is that in your specific programs, your experience of this? García? Yeah, you're kind of still on my screen, so go ahead.
So well, I have to say that my program, the way in which we are examined is basically through course papers. And this is also something very different from what I was used before in Italy. So in Italy, they really value the kind of literature knowledge. So you do exams the exam is the same for everyone, and you basically have to present yourself, and you have to, the better you know the book that you studied, the highest will be your grade. In Sweden and in my program, it's completely different. So actually you have a lot of freedom in working on your individual exam. And so I would say that I lost myself, sorry. And that
no, but I think that's interesting, the kind of the difference between, I think that's part of the challenging your teachers as well. Daniel, how do you advise students on managing this self-study part?
Mm-hmm. First thing I'll say that it's a big difference also depending on the type of assignment that you might be facing. It's a really big difference, of course, from like group work to like just working by yourself. And I mean with this is that with group work, you might not get a really specific detailed things that your group needs to do. We might give you the final goal, what you need to deliver at the end of the week. And now we give you the freedom as a team to organize yourself. And this is the challenge. And sometimes we're like, frictions might occur. How do we organize? Who organizes ourselves? Who follow? Who leads? So this is something that for me is a really valuable learning, not just for your studies, also for later on when we go to work in any other company. Because you need to understand also for different assignments, which role are you going to play? Are you going to be the one leading here? Are you going to be the one helping out someone else? So I will say is a bit of like self-conscious understanding. What can you bring to the team? How can you help the team? And at the same time, realizing that you have this goal at the end of the week and things need to get done. Some teams might find their own way of working, but I think it's really important that you yourself and together with the team find out these ways of working. And I would say it's basically the same methodology for yourself. When you work by yourself, we might not go and check on you every day. how much have you done? How much have you written of your assignment? We will check on you on Friday when it's submission day. So then you need to be structured enough to find your way through the work to deliver quality content at the end of the week. And that's something that it's been done probably different in different contexts, in different nationalities, but we go from zero. We go from the base of like we understand and we might not start from the same point, all of us. So then we learn how to do it. So at the end, we all are on the same page when it comes to how to do it and how we organize ourselves.
Mm-hmm. That's really, really useful, useful perspective. Ella, how have you found it?
Sorry, yeah, I would like to actually complement what Daniel was mentioning, because I think like that comes with teamwork, but also that comes like with your own individual time management. And sometimes when, well, at the beginning, like teachers like really give you a schedule and you have like certain tasks that you have to be done in certain moments. So you feel like there is a path, but as long as the program develops, they give you way more freedom to manage your own time. And that's how they all are kind of pushing you to set your own boundaries regarding like how much do you want to work, what level of performance do you want to achieve, and at the end of the day they're just going to receive your submission, so the work is up to you. But this is a progressive process. It's not like that from the beginning, that they just give you an assignment, some instructions and literature list, and they let you go. No, that happens like in the last courses. But I believe that that's also really relevant to know how to manage your own time and set yourself your own goals to achieve whatever you need on time, because there's nobody behind you pushing you or reminding you, oh, you have to do this. It's up to you.
Did you find this difficult, García, when you first came to kind of get to grips with this, that's nobody pushing you, and the fact that you have to get everybody in your team on the same page?
Yeah, I would say a little bit, but it's also true that, so if, for example, in my program, we do a lot of seminars, and basically for the seminars, you need to do the readings. I mean, that is like the basic thing. So, and we kind of learned during the program that if we have 3, 4, 5 readings, has no sense to read all of them in a superficial way, but it's better to focus on some specific readings and then being able to, like talk, because as Hela said before, also my program, you really don't know what will happen the next lesson, because the lesson is constructed depending on the discussion. So once you understand that, then you know that, it happened to me that sometimes I was not very prepared, but then also when I am during the seminar, I realized that I was not really contributing to the discussion. I was not learning as I could do. So this is also how I think I kind of, find the energy to read and spend a lot of hours in this, because then you know that at the end of the week you will participate to the seminar and you will be able to be engaged in the conversation, and the outcome will be, of course, learning. Yeah.
Thanks, Daniel. How, what's your expectation on the participation in seminars?
Before that, I would like to build on something that Asia was saying, and I think when she was referring about reading, and even in like a master level, and when we say in the beginning that we are going to teach you how to read, might sound really stupid, but I mean, it's completely right, because we hand in the first weeks of the program tons of articles that you need to read, and the first weeks, and that comes from me. I mean, this is happening this year, happened 4 years ago when I did it, and it didn't happen for a long while, and it's the same in other programs. You face yourself the first weekend, just like with almost spending the whole weekend on reading the articles, because you are reading them in the wrong way. You are reading how you used to read before. You read every single line. You read taking care of every single detail. Later on, you learn how to learn fast when you need to learn fast, because it's not important, and you learn how to slow down and read the parts that are really important. That way of learning allows you to cover way more material without skipping the parts that are really important. So that's something that I think is also really important, because even the way that we're working, you need to find a new way to do it, to be able to process all this content. And then answering your question regarding the expectations, I think what we look for is, or if I put it another way, what we don't want is a professor talking to a crowd with no connection, with no interaction between them. We want something live. We want something that changes. We don't want that the same lecture repeats year after year. We want that the people actually are part of the teaching content. And that's something that for me is really interesting, having these like multicultural groups with not only nationalities, also like backgrounds. As like before we were mentioning, there's people who comes to the program with like 10 years already of working experience. They probably know a lot of like retail industry, they know a lot of things. So they can bring all that experience, complement the cases that we might be talking about or the theories, and then maybe say, oh, this theory actually I was reading about, I already have done this in some context when I was working in X company. So this amount of like life experiences that brings to the lecture just make them unique, and they also make them way more rich in terms of content and how useful they are.
So you should basically, when you come here, you should expect to contribute. You yeah, and that's exactly. Expected of you.
Exactly, and that also is one of the mechanics that we look for in many of the lectures. I mean, in the seminar, for example, we will divide the class. There's something really often that we will divide the class, creating groups where we have been talking as a group. Now you're going to discuss it, and it's expected of you to contribute with your opinion. And it's not necessary that you always will have something valuable to say, or it's not needed like you always have the right thing to say. It's enough sometimes to just express what you think, what was your experience when you read the article, what you have felt when you were taking part of the class. That's enough. But it's good that this is something that is done in a collaborative way, like we do it together.
This tells me what you're saying now, how important the language skills are. A lot of reading, and I think, a lot of people who probably, apply think, oh, my English is good. But with the amount of reading that's necessary, how did you feel about that when you first came here? Start with Asiya.
Yeah, I remember that I was quite concerned about the English, and I think that my understanding was definitely okay. And of course, it is like a process of learning itself to kind of get used to the English as, the main language. So of course, the first readings I did, I, needed more time. And then the more you read, the more you get used to the English. And regarding the speaking, for example, I remember that I was very, very stressed about that because I like to talk a lot, but I don't think that my English is perfect. It's not yet perfect, will never be perfect. And so I remember that, to talk in front of 25, 30 colleagues, it's always a little bit like stressful if it's not your mother tongue. But then I realized after the first week that actually most of us were not English speakers. And this is kind of normal, I think. So, one thing is to have do a master in UK where maybe everyone is speaking English as a mother tongue. But here in Sweden, English is the language that is putting all of us together in my program, but I think also in other programs. So, in the international programs, of course. So, at a certain point, you just stop to care about that because, of course, there are some colleagues that are thinking and speaking in their native language, but most of them are not. So, we're all in the same in this. And regarding writing, since again, the way in which we are examining my program is basically course papers, you have the time, it's not that you have to do an exam in 1 hour. You have 1 week to write your individual assignment. And of course, at the beginning, you need to check a lot the grammar, but then at a certain point, you just start, to do it. And also professors usually takes this into account. So of course they usually don't penalize, not for sure, not in the first semester. They do not penalize you if you don't write a perfect English. You know what I mean? They accept some mistakes.
Yeah. But you do need to have, quite a high command, I think, to be able to take in all this reading you have to do. How have you felt, Ella? What's your experience been?
Yeah, I think regarding English, I think I've improved a lot because you have to read a lot, all the articles in English, you have to speak a lot. And, at some point you just need to catch up in your English level. And every time that you make a mistake, you just need to make the effort of correcting it. And yeah, personally for me, it hasn't been a problem, but definitely I've seen perhaps some, yeah, like what we talked before, communication challenges, because the way we express ourselves, of the words that we use to say something, and maybe the messages are not fully kind of delivered and received. So I would say like the most of the effort, of course, is to have like an adequate level of English regarding grammar and speaking, and make yourself understood. Sometimes it's quite hard when you don't really understand what the other person is saying. So yeah, like that is like the like personal effort. If you do that, everything is going to be so much easier. And if it takes more time to write a paper in English, and you need to take like the double amount of time that you will take writing it in your own language, like you have to do it. I mean, you have to put the effort there. And if you have a friend or somebody that can maybe like proofread for you, that would be amazing. But also, the university has this service. There's an English and languages offices. It's an office that offers kind of this service. So basically, if you really want to check any paper, or even if you want to practice a presentation, you can do it with them, and they will help you out. It takes some time. I tried once, but it takes so much time that I didn't try it again. But they were really helpful and really nice. Of course, I can imagine all the amount of students sending them papers and asking them for help. So I fully understand. So it's more like in my side, like my patience.
But at least there is support available.
There is support available.
Yeah, lastly, before we move on to the questions from the viewers, what do you find with thinking of the academic context of being here? What do you find? And then quickly, you kind of only get like one sentence each, or so, 2 sentences. What has been your favorite thing about it? And what has been the most challenging thing about it? Daniel has been quiet too long. Well, let's start with him, and then you two can think a bit longer.
I would say it's actually the same thing, and I will explain myself. One of the best things of this, like when I was in this like international context or like multicultural context, for me, even with the risk that it might sound a bit too poetic, but is that you actually get to know yourself better thanks to the difference of the other people. I mean, when you live in your home country, the difference between the people you're surrounded are way smaller than the difference that you face with it when you are in this kind of context. Being in this kind of context does make you aware of how you are, which is sometimes something that we don't really think so often, and we probably should do more often.
And so sometimes we don't want to think about it. Exactly. So yeah. So
we don't want to acknowledge some of the things, but I think it's a really powerful and useful exercise to do. And I think you kind of feel you are not forced to do it when you are here, because you need to understand why what for you is normal is not normal anymore, and why you're generating a different reaction to the people around you when you do what is normal for you to do. So in that sense, I think that's also really good. In the same time, I think that's challenging, because that adds up a level of difficulty for doing everything else. When you work together as a team, there's a new layer of things that you need to take into account. You need to take into account how you say things to don't be disrespectful. And I put myself as example. In Spain, we tend to say things in a really direct way. When we have a discussion, we might say, "No, you're wrong. I want to say my." In Sweden, for example, that will go a bit more. I understand what you mean, but so when you don't follow these kind of like common rules that we tend among each other, you might sound disrespectful to the other person, even though it was never what you intend to. So being aware of these things also mean that you need to use them and you need to exercise them.
That's brilliant. I lived in England for a while, and they have lots of ways of saying, no, I don't agree with you, such as, I hear what you're saying, with a nice smile. Thank you. Hela, over to you. Best thing and the most challenging thing.
Well, the best thing, I would say, really, the program as a whole. I think like my level of understanding about so many topics that I didn't fully understand. I mean, the main reason why I applied to this program, it's kind of being fulfilled. When it comes to understanding more about business, more about companies, more about management and organizations, and in an international setting, that is kind of check. That box is checked. So I feel like really happy with the knowledge I take with me after these 2 years. So yeah, and the most challenging, I think, like getting to learn the Swedish education system, because not everything, well, I wouldn't say that is hard. I just say that there's like, let's say some sort of examination that I like. This style of examination is not the kind of thing that I've been used to do ever. I've never done anything like that before. So yeah, sometimes like you get like little surprises. It's like, oh, I didn't know that this worked like this, you know, or I didn't know that this was a point evaluation or point system and all of that, which like are not critical, but of course are highly relevant. So yeah, it's just more like learning to understand where you are and how you've been measured, and also like what Daniel said, like how to work with your classmates, and yeah, of course, like teamwork is a blessing and a curse at the same time. So it is great when you have a great team, but perhaps if you don't, you learn.
It's a struggle. Yeah, you learn patience.
you learn, you know. So yeah, but I think like if you learn how to manage it, it's amazing. After you do that, it's like, oh, you're like set free of how to
you're set for life, really. It's a skill for life.
Exactly. So no matter what happens, then you kind of learn that as well. Yeah.
Thanks. Asiya?
I think that my rose and my thorn, I think this is kind of like an expression that I can use. It's the fact that my program is very critical, and that means that I was able to understand and learn so many things, definitely way too much things. I mean, I was not expecting to have this kind of knowledge at the end of my master, but at the same time I had to put in discussion what I known from before. And putting in discussion what I know from before means also to put in discussion my position in the world. So that was a little bit challenge, because, you know, in my field, I come from political science field. You think that you know how the world works, and actually it's not like that. And so this specific critical perspective, that it's definitely part of my program, but I think that it's a little bit a way of like this, the way in which Swedish academia is organized also. I think that, yeah, that was the nicest, but also the most challenging thing that I had to go through. Yeah.
That's actually it for today. Thank you so much for being with us, both to my guests and to the viewers. I hope that you've gained a greater understanding into what it's like to study here. Hard work, but lots of fun, and from what I hear, you're learning a lot. So thank you, and stay in touch via the Instagram or the blogs. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.